So good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to our Texas Sea Grant College Program Pre-Proposal Reviewer Working Session. And we'd like for this to be a good professional working session where we can provide you with an understanding of what your task will be and to give you an understanding of what we're wanting to go over. So as a means of introduction, my name is Mia Zwolinski. I'm Assistant Director for Research and Fiscal Administration. And our director for the Texas Sea Grant College Program is Dr. Pamela Plotkin. And I will start off by just giving you a quick overview and some introductions, and then I will turn that part of the meeting over to Dr. Plotkin. And so we have the purpose and the goals and then Zoom meeting information. Our purpose and goal for today is for to have the pre-proposal reviewer working session with Dr. Pamela Plotkin to understand the review process based on the Texas Sea Grant Strategic Plan goals and research priorities as identified in the request for proposals. And we will, once Dr. Plotkin does her presentation, then I will go over the pre-proposal instructions that I will send to all of you, and also will have on our website, and the methodology for conducting your review. And then lastly, we'll have a question and answer session, an interactive session. And so just regarding this webinar, it's being recorded and we'll make it available along with our presentation documents on our website. I will also email you all the documents so that you don't have to necessarily go to the website, but if you'd like to review the recording again, that will be, I'll provide you that link after this week. So at this point, just save your questions for after the presentation, and we will leave time for that interactive Q&A. And if when we're at that point to ask a question, just raise the hand icon to be recognized, and I'll unmute you so that you can either simply ask the question or type in your question. And I may then also just unmute everyone so that we can have that interactive discussion. And so we have, just as an introduction, we have 15 to 16 reviewers. We have some of our Texas Sea Grant Extension agent specialists in fisheries, in aquaculture, in fisheries, Texas Sea Grant Extension agents who are also affiliated with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. We have coastal resource background individuals, and then some of the others that are not able to attend the working session. We have some environmental water quality experts, coastal management, sustainability. So not only have we received positive feedback to assist with this important first step in our review process for our research competition, but we've also have some reviewers, scientists outside of the state from Tulane University, Oregon State, University of Texas, it's in Texas, and then Portland State. And so Dr. Plotkin will go more into the understanding of the review process and the purpose. I just wanted to show this page because this will be something that is what you will be looking at the proposals and reviewing based on this review criteria. So there are 3 items here, and Dr. Plotkin will go over these in great detail, but we want to put this in front of you often so that you can understand and reference back to it. This is also on, I have a 2-page instruction guideline for review that I will follow up after Dr. Plotkin's presentation. And this same review criteria, these 3 points, are in those review instructions. And so I will unshare my screen and allow Dr. Plotkin should be able to share her screen.
Says I should start my video.
Well, that's just your presentation there. That's just a general term.
Okay.
So you should be able to find the green button to share your screen.
Okay, I see share the screen. Thank you, Mia.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you all for joining us today and for agreeing to serve as a reviewer of our research competition pre-proposals. I am hopeful I'm going to get to my PowerPoint presentation and start you off with a pretty scene this morning of Texas. Scott, just like you, I've had to learn a lot of technology, and hopefully the last 8 months have been useful, and we'll have few problems today. So it looks like everything's loading, and I thank you for your patience as we power up here. So I'm actually going to turn off my video because I get better connection without my video. And hopefully you'll have a better experience without looking at me. Okay, so as this is loading, again, thank you for joining us today. And thank you for your willingness to participate in the review process for the research pre-proposals. We've received about 108 pre-proposals thus far. And Friday, 5 p.m. was the closing date and time, so we will not be accepting any more than that. And our job now is to review those 108 one-page documents against the criteria that we provided in our request for proposals document that all the principal investigators had to follow. And so that's an important task. It's not a very difficult task, but today we hope to give you some good guidelines on how to do that effectively, efficiently, and responsibly. So as Mia said, we have a process that we're going to follow, which asks you to use 3 criteria. And I took this slide from the webinar we gave a couple of months ago to researchers who were interested in applying for a research grant. And I like to start that presentation and end that presentation with this slide, because the most common question I receive from researchers is, what does Texas Sea Grant really want to fund? And we've tried to be a lot clearer about that every time we have a competition. We've tried to be very transparent, very open, very honest about what we want. And so here are the 6 bullets that we share with the researchers, and in the webinar, we go through these point by point to help them understand what we mean when we say, we want research that will generate substantial long-term impacts in Texas, or we're looking for outcome-oriented research, or any of the other bullets that you see listed here. I have highlighted in yellow the 3 bullets that pertain to your review process, what we're asking you to review for each of those pre-proposals. So I'm going to go into a lot more detail about these, but there they are, and that'll be the focus of my presentation today. So here they are again, those 3 pre-proposal review criteria that Mia showed you a few minutes ago, and that I just showed you on the previous slide. So the degree to which the proposed research relates to our strategic plan goals and our research priorities identified in the RFP. I'll talk a little bit more about that. The degree to which the proposed activity will contribute, and I won't read that for you, the rest of it, because we're going to go into a lot of detail. But there are the 3 review criteria, and these are the only criteria that you should use when you're making your evaluation of each pre-proposal. So let's look at the first one, the degree to which the proposed research relates to the Texas Sea Grant strategic plan goals and research priorities identified in the RFP. And I'm going to chop that up into 2 parts. So the first part of that asks you to assess it or evaluate the proposals, pre-proposals against our strategic plan goals. Here on this slide are our strategic plan goals. We only have 6 of them, and they are broken up 2 goals per focus area. And so when you receive your pre-proposals, you will see that the researchers have identified what goal their research will address, or what goal their research will achieve. And so these are pretty lofty goals. So for example, goal number 1, coastal communities and industries increase their resilience to natural and man-made hazards to minimize economic disruption. There are a lot of different types of research that one could do within that goal. So it's a really broad goal. And if you read through each of the goals, they really are very broadly interpreted goals. And so I haven't looked through all of the pre-proposals that have been submitted yet, but my guess is that most of them are going to propose research that clearly fits within one of these goals. And so you're going to assess whether it does address one of these goals or does not address one of these goals. And we'll talk about the scoring and rating system in a few minutes, but this is probably the easiest part of your evaluation of the proposed research in the pre-proposal. So we're going to provide these for you. They are also in our strategic plan, and Mia can provide a link to that for you as well. But here they are, our 6 goals, and you will see the goal listed in the research pre-proposal as well. So we also ask that you assess or evaluate if the research proposal addresses one of the research priorities that we identified in our request for proposals document. And so here are the research priorities that we identified in the RFP. They are on page 2 of the RFP. And if you don't have a copy of the RFP, Mia will send that to you. I encourage you to take a look at it. These are on page 2. Each of the pre-proposals will have identified a research priority from our RFP. We have also broken these down in the RFP, and here on this slide by our focus areas: resilient communities and economies, sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, and healthy coastal ecosystems. And that's just for ease of reference in a way. There is some overlap in the research priorities and the strategic plan goals. But there are examples that I have seen in the research pre-proposals where a researcher felt that their goal came from one focus area, but the research priority came from another focus area, and that's okay. So for example, you could have somebody who selected recreational fisheries as their research priority, but the project they're proposing is really going to answer a goal in a different focus area. For example, healthy coastal ecosystems. So that's okay. We just need them to select one or more research priorities that were identified in our RFP, and one or more strategic plan goals. They don't necessarily have to fall under the same focus area. So that can become confusing if you're tied to focus areas, but I ask you not to tie your assessment or valuation to focus areas. Tie it to strategic plan goals, tie it to research priorities, and try not to stay too aligned with our focus areas. And if you've got questions about that, I'm happy to answer that at the end. So strategic plan goals and research priorities are one of the criteria you will use to evaluate the research pre-proposals. Now, the second one has a lot of different pieces to it. So the first part is the degree to which the proposed research activity will contribute as an essential or complementary unit to other projects. What that refers to is other Sea Grant projects, and our Sea Grant staff, our extension specialists, and our county agents are most knowledgeable about our other projects. We're not requiring anybody to go and become knowledgeable about our other projects. But if you do have knowledge about our other projects and you believe that the proposed research activity will contribute to our other projects, then this is an evaluation piece that you can and should use. The next two parts are accessible to everybody, regardless of whether you know about our projects. So the degree to which the proposed activity contributes to reaching the objectives of the Texas Sea Grant Program, or the degree to which it addresses the needs of important state, regional, or national constituencies. And so all of you have some awareness and or knowledge about the needs of state and regional and national constituencies. So it could be important to Texas, it could be important to the Gulf of Mexico, or it could be important to the United States in general. And so, you know, we could be looking at something that is very, very local, only of importance to, say, Galveston Bay. And we could be looking at something that has significance only to the Gulf of Mexico. Maybe it's harmful algal blooms, red tide, which of course does get beyond the Gulf of Mexico, but has been a problem in the Gulf of Mexico. Or we could be looking at something that is of importance to national constituencies, and it could be something like climate change. So this is where you need to really pay attention to the research that's being proposed, and can assess whether it is of importance. And it's hard to give you a real objective scale to use because there's a lot of subjectivity in this particular review criterion. And so what Gary Graham thinks is important to Texas might be very different than what Morgan Ayers thinks is important to Texas. And so the only advice I give you for number 2 is to develop your own way of assessing the projects that you have to review and be consistent among all the projects that you're reviewing. And that's the best best advice I can give you there. But there is some subjectivity in this particular review criterion. Moving on to the last pre-proposal review criterion. This is a new one that we have emphasized in this current request for proposals. It's something that we've always desired, but haven't been requiring to the degree we are in this competition. We really want to support research that someone will use. And that someone could be a non-governmental organization, it could be an industry, it could be a state agency, it could be a local community. And I'm going to talk about different examples in a minute, but we want somebody to take that research and benefit from it. And so this is an area that, again, may have some subjectivity depending on the reviewer and what you believe will be a benefit for the proposed research. But I ask you to be consistent among the pre-proposals that you're reviewing so that there is consistency in your scores among the ones that you are scoring. So let's take a look just at some examples of what we mean by benefits to end users. So in the first bullet here, an example of an end user is a local community. And the example of the research that I have listed next to it is a research project that helps them develop their community resilience plan. There are a lot of communities along the Texas coast that have resilience plans and helps them chart a course for their future on how they're going to build, how they're going to develop that community, how they're going to respond to natural hazardous events like storms and hurricanes. And some communities don't have those resilience plans in place. Some of those communities need to enhance their resilience plan. So if a researcher comes forward and says, we have some new research that we believe is going to help strengthen community resilience plans, and they may just want to work with one community, they may want to work with multiple communities, that would be a benefit to an end user. At the full proposal stage, we're going to require letters from these end users. And we are going to do a real thorough assessment of the benefits that are going to accrue to those end users. At this point in the stage, we just want you to see who they've listed as the end users. Did they list an end user? Is it a significant type of benefit that will accrue to that end user? And we're not looking for evidence at this point that they have engaged those end users, but that they have one in mind, and the plan that they're proposing for their research will actually accrue benefits. So looking at the second bullet down, another example of an end user is a state agency. And the research could be research that informs a specific management decision. So, it could be Texas Parks and Wildlife Department that needs to gather some better biological information about where a particular recreational fish occurs or its abundance, and if that research can better inform the management of those species for Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, that would benefit the users as well as the resource. So that's a quick example of a state agency end user. And then the third bullet down, the public can also be an end user as well. So research that would result in improvements to public health and safety is a great type of research that would benefit many people. One example would be research that helps improve awareness and knowledge of things like rip currents at the coast. People every year are caught in rip currents. Some people die in those rip currents. And so that's one example of research we funded in the past that resulted in improvements to public health and safety by engaging different local communities along the coast and trying to understand why people were getting caught in rip currents, and then doing some outreach to assist those communities to educate their public. Fourth bullet down, a non-governmental organization can be an end user. And we have a lot of NGOs along the Texas coast that are involved in coastal restoration. And there may be a researcher who wants to develop a method that will improve restoration of coastal wetlands that will be used by that NGO to improve their ability to restore coastal wetlands. So that's one more example of an end user and the type of research that might benefit that end user and the resource. And then finally, I've got industry as another example of an end user. And you think about the shrimp fishery in Texas, which is our most important commercial fishery. And if someone proposed to do research that would improve the shrimp catch and yield of that industry, and reduce bycatch, that would be a great benefit to the industry. It'd be a great benefit to the resource as well. So these are things that we're looking for you to assess in the proposed research. Does it have a use? And we've asked all of the researchers to address that in their pre-proposal. So that is yet another criterion that we ask. Now, when you score your proposals, we have a rating system that goes from 1 to 5. So if we look at number 5, excellent. The pre-proposal is outstanding in all respects. We want to encourage it to go to the full proposal stage. So if all of the criteria have been met, and you believe that it is going to be a successful research project, then you would give it an excellent. If there are some limitations to some of the pre-proposal research proposed, but it is still high quality in nearly all respects, then you would give it a 4. A quality pre-proposal, but maybe has a few more deficiencies, would receive a 3 rating, a good rating. It would still be encouraged a full proposal. It's just not as good as your 4 or your 5 pre-proposals. And then finally, 2 and 1 are fair and poor, and these are lacking in some critical aspects. And so, if there are no end users, or there are no, if it doesn't, meet any of the criterion, or at least 2 of the 3 criteria, then fair and poor are fair scores and rating. And again, everybody's very different in how they apply their pre-proposal scores and ratings. Some people are much more critical than others, and it all works out in the end, because we're going to take all your scores collectively and come up with a final pre-proposal score and rating for each of the pre-proposals. So I wanted to just quickly mention some good practices that I have used when I'm reviewing proposals, whether they're pre-proposals or full proposals. And the first one is read the RFP. We have given that request for proposals to the researchers. That's what they followed. And it's really important as a reviewer that you read the RFP so you know what guidance we have given to the researchers and how they're being evaluated or how they've been told they're being evaluated. Second bullet down, I find it's really helpful for me to just skim the pre-proposals before I read them in depth, because that gives me an idea of what I'm going to be reviewing in depth. It gives me a quick look at the format and what folks have done, how they've articulated things. And it also gives me a quick view of the variation in how pre-proposals have been written. And what you'll find anytime you're reviewing pre-proposals or full proposals is that there's always cream at the top. And what I mean by that is there are always some pre-proposals or full proposals that are just so well written. They're hitting all the right buttons, and then there are others that are really good and then others that are not so good. And so if you've done this a number of times, you know that happens every time. And so in that skimming process, you can easily see the variation. You can easily see the people who read the RFP, followed the recommendations, and did the work according to the guidelines we provided them. Third bullet down, look for compliance with the RFP. Mia's already done that to make sure that they have complied with our requirements, but it's also good for you to take a look at that, and especially to look at it for compliance with the 3 evaluation criteria that you're being asked to review these against. Look for inconsistencies. So, if a pre-proposal says we're going to address this research priority, and then you read their abstract and it doesn't address the research priority they say they're going to address, that's a pretty significant inconsistency. So that's just one glaring example of an inconsistency. Again, rate the pre-proposal against the 3 evaluation criteria we've provided to you. And then the next bullet down, we're really looking for you to provide some specific, meaningful comments for each criterion. If, for example, in the first criterion that we've asked you to review, they do clearly address a strategic plan goal, and they do clearly address one of our research priorities, then you could just say, excellent job addressing, the strategic plan goal and the research priority. If they didn't, you could say, well, it wasn't clear to me whether this research will address the research priority, and here's why it's not clear to me. So make sure that you have some comments for each criterion that are meaningful, and provide feedback. So at the end, in addition to giving us comments for each criterion, it's good to summarize your findings. What were some of the strengths and weaknesses of the pre-proposal? Is this going to be of benefit to end users? Is this a good research project that will address important state needs? This sounds like a great research project, but I'm not sure if they're going to be able to accomplish it in a 2-year period of time. Those are the kinds of feedback that we want you to share with the researchers, because they want to know why you've given it a 5 or why you've given it a 1. And so justifying why you've given it the score you have is really important to us, because your input is really critical. We want to be able to make good objective decisions based on the feedback that you're going to provide to us, and the feedback that you're going to provide to the researchers are going to help them either develop a really good full proposal if they're encouraged to submit a full proposal. And if they're not encouraged to submit a full proposal, we want to be able to justify why they were not encouraged to submit a full proposal with your comments, which will be anonymous. I think that was the last of my slides. Yep, last of my slides. And I just want to thank you, and we'll entertain any questions, comments, suggestions that you might have when we get to that point in the presentation. So Mia, I'm going to pass it over to you now. And I'm assuming you have the power to stop sharing.
I think you can unshare your screen.
Okay, I think I just did.
Okay. So I am back to sharing my screen, and to continue with the reviewer working session. The next thing we'll be doing is reviewing the actual pre-proposal reviewer instructions that I will send to you this afternoon, along with the RFP and the methodology on how to submit your review. And so again, we're going to keep putting this in front of you. The pre-proposal review criteria, number one, the degree to which the proposed research relates to the Texas Sea Grant strategic plan goals and research priorities identified in the RFP. And to let you know, in our RFP, we specifically required on that one-page pre-proposal document to list the elements which should give you these answers. So there were 6 elements: the title, the PI name and affiliation, the selected goal from the strategic plan, and the research priorities. And from my preliminary first review of all of these pre-proposals, they've done a great job in listing each of these items. And then their abstract would then address how their research under number 2, how that proposed activity will contribute as an essential or complementary unit to the other projects to reaching the strategic plan goals of Texas Sea Grant, and the degree to which it addresses the needs of important state, regional, or national constituencies. So for those of you who may not be aware, but prior to developing our request for proposals, we send out a survey to stakeholders and researchers across the state of Texas to have them provide us an assessment of what the research needs are for Texas over the next 2 years. So the request for proposal fiscal year 2022 to 2024, which would start in February of 22 and go through January of 24, the research priorities were based on the feedback that came in from the survey in order for us to develop our request for proposals. So it's a give and take on what the Texas Sea Grant program wants to fund, and that's based on what researchers and stakeholders have told us is necessary to fund over the next couple of years. Excuse me. Excuse me. And then thirdly, as Dr. Plotkin mentioned, the new requirement to provide us who that end user will be and how it will benefit from the research. Excuse me. And so this page and page 2, these are the instructions that I will be sending out to you. So I have provided you an overview of the technical review process. Again, those three criterions of the review criteria, this grade scoring that Dr. Plotkin has reviewed, how you will perform your review, and when reviews are due, which is the end of February, close of business of February 5th, Friday, February 5th. And then I have some screenshots on what you will see as far as how you will look and download your proposals and how you will review the proposals that will be assigned to you based on your specialty. And we will have 2 reviewers based on specialties, a primary reviewer and a secondary reviewer. And so again, we want to thank you for agreeing to review our pre-proposals that are submitted to our request for proposals, our research competition. It's the important first step to then being able to move forward with researchers to submit a full proposal. The most important thing I want you to look at, and I've put this immediately up front, is whether you might have a conflict of interest with the task that you are being asked to complete to review these pre-proposals. For example, your personal or professional ties to researchers, financial interests in the research, strongly held personal, political, or religious beliefs that might affect your ability to comment on a particular topic. These are all important things for you to consider. So it's not just whether you know the person or not. It may be other relationships as well within the organization, an advisory arrangement, ownership, family contacts. If you feel you have a conflict of interest with a pre-proposal, immediately contact me. And we will look to, I'm sorry, my screen just went blank. So I don't know if you're able to see the screen, but my screen is blank. I apologize.
We can see your screen, Mia.
Okay. Thank you, Pam. So with whether or not you have a conflict of interest or not, we will have you review your assignments quickly, and then you'll know whether just to go ahead and proceed with the review. Unfortunately, since I can't see my screen, I'm not sure where we are.
Can you hear me, Scott? Yeah. Is the conflict of interest, is that our personal decision, or is that something we need to reach out to y'all on? Because I've done so much research with people around the Gulf and sit on so many committees and involved in so many aspects of the fishery. It's going to be interesting, probably.
Yeah, I mean, you will know, and then Dr. Plotkin can answer better than I, but you would know if you feel like you have a conflict of interest. But if you feel like you can give an objective review without feeling contained from doing that, then you may proceed. But if you don't, if you have a conflict such that you're not comfortable and that is something that you would need to disclose, then we would want you to reach out to us so we can reassign.
So it's basically just a personal decision. You know, I feel I can be objective on all of
Yeah,
it.
if you can feel like you can be objective, then yes.
Okay.
Pam, I'm sorry, can you tell me what page I'm on?
You are on page 2 of the pre-proposal technical reviewer instructions.
Okay, so the first page of the technical reviewer instructions, then you should see where you would be tasked to review based on what Dr. Plotkin has already covered. And we're wanting you to conduct the review based on the 3 criterions, and to also then, based on your review, select a score and provide comments based on your review for each of those 3 criterions, and also whether you can then justify in a brief comment of the selection of the score that you've made. And then the scoring, as you can see, from 5 to 1, as we've previously reviewed. And then the second page, which I'm hoping you're seeing up at the top of the screen, it has its second page, is primarily looking at how you will be receiving the information to review the pre-proposals. We will send you an email which will have a link. The pre-proposals are all in the EC grant proposal system that we use, but you do not have to access that system. You will be, what I will do on Monday morning is send you an email as a heads up with your assignment list. And as I had mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and also provide these PowerPoints and the RFP to you today, so you'll have that. But then you will receive a system-generated email from the EC grant system that will have a link for the proposals that you will be assigned. And so the landing page, once you click on the link, the landing page will welcome you. And there will be a little white button in the center top of the page that will allow you to click on and provide your conflict of interest statement, which you can see here, sign your conflict of interest statement. And when you click on that button, this will display, and you would select whether or not you have a conflict of interest, make a statement if you feel like you need to. So for example, Scott, you are involved with the fisheries in the Gulf region. There could possibly be a conflict of interest, but I feel confident that I can provide an objective review, for example. Otherwise, you don't have to really state anything, and then just put your name in there and then sign off on that. And so the landing page will have a list of the proposals that you will be assigned as a primary reviewer. And over to the far right, you can click on proposals for this assignment, and it will download proposals in this category. And it'll download a zip file of all of those listed proposals that you're a primary reviewer for. So it'll be easy for you to get all of that information there. And then as a secondary reviewer, the same thing on that far right side, proposals in this category, click on that, it'll download all the proposals that are listed for you as a secondary reviewer. And then to actually go into each review, you would click on the go under action, and it would take you to the review page. This page, you will not have a scribe function, so you won't see that in your review process for this competition. So as you click on go and you're in the proposal review panel for that particular proposal, the same instructions that I've been going over, the 2-page instructions that I will send to you, they will also be uploaded in eCgrant, and you can click on that same tab, which will have the same instructions. So it's not anything new for you, but it's there as a good reference. Then the conflict of interest, as we said. And then for our scoring, as you review your pre-proposal based on the criterions of the review criteria, and once you assign the score from 5 down to 1, the text box here is easy for you to, write your comments based on each of the 3 criterions, your final rating, and then a justification, a final statement of why you've selected that rating. And if you'd like, you can copy and paste from another Word doc if you want to work offline, and then come in and copy and paste that information into here. Whichever is easier for you, make it work for you. So, you can do everything offline after you've downloaded the proposals, and write your little paragraph or so comments, or a couple of paragraphs, no longer than a 1 page. You don't have to go into that much detail, but just justify each of those review criterions based on your review. You may submit the proposal review as often as you want, and just save once you've copied and pasted the text in here or written directly into here. Save it each time. You can come back. Once you've saved it, you don't have to submit it, but just keep saving. You can submit it. You'll receive an email confirmation of that submission, and it will guide you that you have the ability to resubmit your reviews as often as you'd like, up until the February 5th, 5 o'clock closing period for your review. So I think we've covered this. Again, where you'll be receiving that link in an email. I will send you an email as a heads up Monday morning, as I said. Then you will receive the system generated email to click on that link. View the list of assigned pre-proposals as a primary reviewer and secondary reviewer, which is what this was showing, the list as primary, the list as secondary. Sign that conflict of interest statement. Select this conflict of interest option, read and sign. Download the instructions, which is identical, again, as I've already mentioned, into this document. Proceed with your review based on the review criteria. Select the rating. Provide written comments to justify your review based on each of the 3 review criterions. And that final comment that was underneath the rating here. So once you've selected the rating, that final comment to justify your score on whether you would recommend the proposal to a full proposal. As I've mentioned here, you may perform a single review or as many reviews as you want at any time. Just click on the save each time. You can revisit, edit previously saved reviews, obviously, and then resubmit. And each time you submit a review, you'll receive another email confirmation. So if you have any questions for this process at all, please reach out to me. I'm here to make it easier for you, despite technical difficulties. But more importantly, on research priority questions, please contact Dr. Pamela Plotkin. If there's a conflict of interest question, please direct those to me. If I feel like I need Dr. Plotkin's input, she is here for me as well to support, to get a good understanding and a good conflict of interest and a good objective review from all of the reviewers. So at this point, I will allow others to, you can either, what I think I'll do is just open the I'll unmute all. And if you have questions, we can. So I'm asking to unmute all of you all at this point.
Mia, this is Lisa Gonzalez. I have a question,
Yes.
and thank you very much to you and Pam. This is really great information. And apologies if I missed this. When we receive the email, will we be assigned a set of pre-proposals to review, or is there a minimum number of pre-proposals that you would like us to review?
We will make those assignments for you
Okay.
with 16 reviewers and 108 proposals, you know, and depending on the specialty, reviewers will have 12 to 15 one-page pre-proposal documents to look at. The pre-proposal in and of itself does not have any other documents, does not have a budget, does not have references or citations. Our goal was to keep the pre-proposal process similar to a letter of intent with that abstract in making sure that the researchers respond to the request for proposals based on our strategic plan, goals, and the research priorities as defined in the request for proposals.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful. And then if we do identify a conflict of interest, like you said, reach out to you early on, and
Yes.
then we may be assigned a different pre-proposal.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Mia and Pam. This was really great information.
Happy birthday, Morgan.
Thank you.
And certainly, you know, if there aren't any questions that come to your mind, you know, immediately, definitely reach out to either Dr. Plotkin or myself to provide those answers for you.
Thank you for the presentation. I thought it was really great and definitely helpful since this is my first time being involved with this kind of review. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you for participating. Do we have any other questions?
Thank you all so much. And Scott, congratulations on the Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuaries extension. That's an incredible accomplishment and one that is going to have long-term impacts in Texas, in the Gulf of Mexico, and in our nation. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. I've been trying to key in on this. My phone's blowing up like crazy since it went into the Federal Register, and we were very concerned it was going to get kicked out into the springtime, into that cooling off period pool of regulations. And there was a lot of hard work, almost 10 years of work about 7.5 years of my life. And as the current chairman of the SAC, it's a really big day for us. We're really, really excited. This is going to protect a lot of vital habitat and really make the sanctuary what it needs to be.
Yeah, very exciting.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mia. And if there are any questions along the way, and inevitably questions will come up once you start the review process, please feel free to reach out to both me and Mia, and we'll be able to answer your questions. And thank you again for your commitment to helping us find the best pre-proposals to encourage to the full proposal stage.
Thanks, and thank to Mia and you, Pam, and everybody at Texas Sea Grant for doing such a great job and making Texas a great place to live and a great blue economy.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.